How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the 5 cheapest cars that you can buy that will do over 200 miles per hour. Now this video took a lot of research. That's because when you look at cheap cars that will go over 200 miles per hour online, first of all, there's very few of them, and second of all, most of the time you see people saying, oh yes, my BMW M5 will do it if you delimit it, and same with my Audi RS6 and yada yada yada. But I didn't want delimiting, I didn't want modifications, I didn't want anything. I wanted 5 cars that will go over 200 miles per hour the day you drive them out of the factory. I'm talking zero mods, zero delimiting, zero anything. You get in the car, it does 200 miles per hour, boom, you're done. And yes, by the way, I'm fully aware that if you buy some of those cars and delimit them, yes, you can do 200 miles per hour. And also you could do it even cheaper if you bought like a Suzuki Hayabusa or whatever, threw on a couple of mods and it would do 200 miles per hour easy. Or just buy a plane ticket. All those ways will get you to 200 miles per hour. Remember that I'm in the UK, so prices in your country may differ. And remember that all these cars are pretty high performance and so therefore will cost a lot of money to look after and maintain longer term. And just for your reference, they're listed from most to least expensive. But as always, remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. And without further ado, let's get into the video. First up, we have the Ferrari 575M Maranello, which was at heart an updated 550 Maranello with a few design changes by the legendary artists over at Pininfarina. It hosts a 5.7 litre V12 engine, putting out 508 brake horsepower, which takes the car from 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds. It has a top speed of 202 miles per hour, which actually makes it the slowest car on this list, as well as being the most expensive, as these are available for around £75,000 at a minimum if you want a right-hand drive example here in the UK, although there are some left-hand drive ones that are listed for less. Either way, you're looking at around 30,000 miles for that kind of money. In addition to the design changes over the 550, the car got bigger brakes, the new engine, better weight distribution, improved aerodynamics and adaptive suspension, so it was quite a handy upgrade. It came as either a manual or automatic, but only around 10% of the cars sold were spec'd as manuals, which makes sense given it's a Grand Tourer. As always with Ferraris, the name has some meaning, with 575 referencing the displacement, the M standing for modificata or modified in English, and the Maranello referencing Maranello, obviously. The reason why I'm such a fan of the 575 is actually because it was one of my favourite racing cars as a kid. I can remember seeing the 575 GTC and owning a model of the car despite it only taking 2 wins total between 2003 and 2004 in the FIA GT Championship. I went through a few Ferrari owners' forums to work out what the common problems were, and generally if the cars have hit their service schedules they don't look to be too bad, even with the complicated F1 automatic gearbox, but replacement parts still remain expensive relative to other cars, like brake pads front and rear will cost you over £500. Instead, the key complaint I could find was people saying that if you don't have a GTC handling pack, it's not as enjoyable a car to drive as the 550, but I sadly can't confirm this for myself. If you happen to own one, reach out and I'll drive it and I'll then be able to confirm it. Either way, even though there aren't many places in the UK where you can really legally hit 200 miles per hour without paying for a runway, it would be cool to say you own a 200 mile per hour Ferrari. Next up, we have the quickest and fastest car on this list, the Mclaren 12C, formerly known as the MP4 12C, which marked McLaren's return to the supercar market after an extended hiatus between the end of the magnificent McLaren F1 in 1998 and 2011 when the 12C came into production. Though don't forget they kept warm by collaborating with Mercedes on the SLR. The 12C was actually the first production car ever to be entirely designed and built by McLaren, and it hosts the 3.8 litre twin turbocharged V8 that you'll find in the majority of McLarens ever since, which puts out 592 brake horsepower and takes the car from 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds, according to tests by drag times. It's quoted at doing 207 miles per hour, but another test got the car up to just over 218 miles per hour, which is not messing about kind of speeds. Especially when you think these are listed for as low as £65,000 with around 30k on the clock, with low mileage examples starting at around the £75,000 mark. I mentioned this was the first production car to be designed wholly by McLaren, but they did use a few other cars while developing it. 2 Ferrari 360s were used as test mules, one for the engine and one for the exhaust system, and an Ultima GTR was used to test the braking and suspension components before McLaren finally felt ready to throw all of these parts together onto their own design. They also took inspiration from their many years in F1 by applying the brake steer technology to the car, which basically makes the inside rear wheel brake when rounding fast corners to minimise understeer. It also has an F1 style one-piece carbon fiber tub which weighs just 80 kilograms. And this might be a boring fact for some of you, but they employed a company in Austria to help reduce the time it takes to produce this tub from 3,000 hours for an F1 car down to 4 hours for the 12C. I'm a consultant, so I'm all about those efficiencies, and that really does get me going. People are pretty hot and cold about reliability on these though. According to a McLaren specialist, the majority of issues are electrical, which is backed up by owners noting warning lights on the dash. Apparently 9 times out of 10 the fix is to park the car, lock it, wait 3 minutes and get back in the car and the light would have disappeared. But that's a bit ridiculous from a car pushing for supercar status. Gearboxes are the scary problem, costing about 15 grand to replace if they go, which is something to be very aware of. All in all, a bit of a beast in terms of performance with a ridiculous top speed, but I wouldn't personally want the potential hassle of owning one. In third, we have a car that could probably be further up this list if it were more available here in the UK. It's the LD platform Dodge Charger SRT Hellcat, and I say that because at the time of making this video there is just one available online here in the UK, listed at £56,000, and it only has 7,000 miles on the clock, so if there are a few more available I'm sure it would be cheaper. Irrespective of that though, this muscle car will put the majority of its rivals to shame with its supercharged 6.2 litre Hemi V8, putting out 707 brake horsepower, the most of any car on this list, and taking it from 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. It's the joint second fastest car on this list too, with a quoted top speed of 204 miles per hour. This also makes it the claimed fastest factory 4-door saloon ever built, which is pretty nuts. The SRT means it was of course part of the street and racing technology vision, which was originally called Team Viper to develop the Dodge Viper. The Charger is the second fastest SRT production model over a quarter mile, just behind the Challenger Demon at the time of making this video, faster even than the Viper. Despite being a pretty sizable car and despite all of that power, apparently it's not too bad on track either when everything is set to track mode, or at least according to a few track tests of the car. I'm definitely a fan of its design on the exterior and can't deny how mean it looks. On the interior though, it is a bit basic compared with some of the other cars on this list, but that's just a preference thing. In the UK I think you might be hard pressed to find one that will have gone through the same abuse as one in the US, so difficult to talk about reliability. People have noted the cars throwing a few codes over the 5 years the car's been around for, and people buying them second hand after they've been harassed down a drag strip have spent a bit replacing stuff like fuel pumps. I'm a big fan of American muscle though, and to know that you can hit 204 miles per hour in a 5-door saloon is a bit of a flex. And a quick question to you guys, let me know in the comments down below, what's the fastest speed you've ever travelled in a car? For me it's 140 miles per hour in an SL55 AMG. What's yours? If you're enjoying this video so far, please do hit the like button, subscribe for more weekly car content. I get out 2 videos every week, and go follow me on Instagram at CarsWithJB where I post every single day. Let's get back to it. From brutish American power, now we take it back to some more luxurious British class with the Aston Martin Rapide S, which will hit 203 miles per hour if it has enough space, considering its 5.9 litre V12 takes from 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds despite having 552 brake horsepower under the bonnet. This means it has the slowest acceleration on this list, but in terms of value for your 200 miles per hour, these are listed for as little as £54,000 with 25 to 30k on the clock, and £60,000 is about the amount you'll spend for a slightly lower mileage example. The name is in reference to the Lagonda Rapide from the 1960s, as Lagonda is now part of Aston Martin, and the new Rapide is Aston Martin's first 5-door fastback saloon since the Lagonda back in 1990. You might not guess it by its size, but it's actually based on the DB9 and shares its platform with it as well as many other Astons. The DB9 was basically stretched to allow for an extra set of doors, and in true British fashion, the design director mentioned that a muscly, thoroughbred racehorse was the inspiration for the car. As a luxury car, it is quite different to some of the other cars we've spoken about thus far, in that it comes equipped with more luxurious features on the interior, all brought together by a Bang & Olufsen 16-speaker sound system. The Rapide S was an upgrade to the original car, which arrived in 2014 and received further fine-tuning before hitting the 200 mph mark from late 2014 onwards. I generally try not to include too much of my opinion in these videos, and you're more than welcome to disagree with me here, but I actually don't think it looks very pretty. I've seen many in person, and someone who lives quite close to me owns one, but I just can't get on board with how stretched it looks. I love the look of the DB9, and all power to you if you like how the Rapide looks, but it's not for me. I can't afford one anyway, so I'm not sure Aston Martin were really trying to please me, but whatever. Problems I could find owners mentioning include having to check oil levels out of fear of oil leaking from the cam covers, $1,000 and adaptive dampers needing replacing, which cost $4,000. There were also a few recalls for the gearbox having issues too, but not an issue that you should now need to worry about. Even though it may not be my favourite car aesthetically, the performance speaks for itself, and as it will hit over 200 miles per hour, it deserves a spot on this list. Taking the top spot, we have seemingly a YouTuber favourite in videos on cheap performance cars, but in one of its highest specs, the Bentley Continental GT Supersports, which hosts that insane twin turbocharged 6-litre W12 engine, putting out 621 brake horsepower, which takes from 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds, and to a top speed of 204 miles per hour, matching the Charger. It was in fact the most powerful and fastest Bentley ever made when it came into production. Now these aren't as cheap as the Continental GTs you might have seen in some of my luxury car videos, as these are listed for around the £40,000 mark at the minimum, but you'll be looking at around 50 grand if you want to get a lower mileage car. The Supersports was a limited production run of the Continental, unveiled at Geneva in 2009 by Jay Leno of all people, and was the first Bentley to be able to run on both petrol and E85 ethanol. It was meant to be the ultimate high performance example of the car, which also included handling, as many journalists praised how planted the car was around turns. Shift times were reduced by 50% over the standard car too, and double downshifts were enabled. The car also gained continuous damping control to help with that handling, as well as a reduction of unsprung mass with its 20-inch lightweight alloy wheels. The brakes were upgraded too, as the carbon fibre reinforced silicon carbide ceramic discs were claimed to be the largest brakes ever fitted to a production car at the time. Overall, the car was 110 kilograms lighter than the standard Continental GT, which is a pretty strong reduction, even despite the new retractable spoiler. If you haven't worked it out yet, basically Bentley went all in on making this a bit of a monster. I've spoken about the reliability on these before, but to summarise, it's not as bad as you might expect. The W12 has been proven for many miles as long as the car has been serviced on time and correctly, but of course it's not cheap if anything does go wrong. Owners suggest a higher mileage example with full Bentley service history will be better to buy than one that's just been stored for long periods of time with low mileage. But to put it simply, over 200 miles per hour from factory for £40,000 is not too bad in my books. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to leave a like, it would really help the video and the channel out. Massive thank you to the patrons as always, and I've seen the Patreon numbers growing as well, so I really appreciate all you guys. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff, and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Listen.